Sorry, guys, I'm just sharing it on our Facebook page now. Okay. Okay, so let's start about today. CBI has told me that they're done searching the property at the Morphew home, which is in Maysville, which is about 15 minutes away from Salida. And they cleared the property. They told me there's been no new updates and no arrests, and still they're still searching for Suzanne. Bottom line, they told me it still remains an active and open investigation. They haven't ruled out a suspect or a person of interest right now, and they are still, going through all types of scenarios. I thought the Chaffee County Sheriff sent a powerful message yesterday in his press release that he sent out. Let me just read it real quick to you guys if you didn't already read it. He said, quote, "This case remains very active as more than a dozen investigators are aggressively working this case on a daily basis. And until we determine what happened to Suzanne, we can't discount any scenario or formally eliminate anyone from suspicion." Again, there's been no arrests, no suspects been named at all. Again, Suzanne Morphew, she went missing on May 10th, Mother's Day, and it sounds like the neighbor called it in to authorities that she just never returned home from a bike ride. So it's been 2 months since her disappearance, and it's been 41 days since the investigators have released the home back to the family and decided to come back yesterday. As far as why they decided to go back to the home, the investigators wouldn't disclose that information. It's still, again, a very active and an ongoing investigation. I would love to talk to anyone who was friends with Suzanne Morphew in Salida or Maysville, anyone that went to the gym with her or church friends. I have spoken with a couple of Barry's friends and acquaintances and people that Barry worked for. But I'm still trying to, talk with Suzanne's friends and family. I did have been in an email exchange with the Mormon family, which is Suzanne's side of the family, and I can just read a clip or real quick what they said. It just says, "She's with us every hour of every day." They're thinking about her. So, but they would not go and do an interview with me or really send me a statement. I know people have asked me, what is Suzanne's side of the family talking about, but they have kind of been told by law enforcement not to say anything really. So let's talk about the search yesterday. All we know is that FBI agents, as well as Chaffee County Sheriff's investigators, as well as CBI, were there at the property searching. Again, we don't know what they were searching for, why they were there, what made them decide to come back after 41 days of giving the property back to the family. They gave the property back to the family on May 26th. So I spoke with a best friend of Barry Morphew, and he kind of told me a back history of, how did Suzanne and Barry meet? They were not high school sweethearts. They actually, they went to the same high school, but Suzanne was actually a lot younger. She was 3 years younger. And Barry sounds like he was very involved in sports and focused on sports in high school. So they actually didn't start dating until Barry was cut from the Blue Jays. For baseball. And Barry was working a groundskeeping job at a golf course, and Suzanne's family lived on the golf course. And so that's how they met. And they both attended Purdue University, dated, got married, had kids. This friend, Troy Skinner, I asked him a lot of questions as far as, what is Barry telling you about the investigation? And this friend told me I am not really asking him about that. I'm more so asking or just telling him I'm here for you. I'm a supportive friend and things like that. So I also spoke with a private investigator who's not directly involved with this case, but he's worked a lot of cases. He's worked in law enforcement for 25 years. He is a current private investigator out of Pueblo, Colorado. He has worked as a former Pueblo County Sheriff for, let me see how long, 17 years, and then the Fountain Chief for 18 months. This gentleman, his name's Dan Corsentino. He's also worked on cases like the Kelsey Barrett case and Kelsey Schilling case. So he was very informative about, what is law enforcement kind of doing right now. And so I know it's an ongoing investigation. They can't tell us much. It's an active investigation. And so he told me just, they're keeping what they know, investigators, close to their heart, close to their chest, so that if there does come to a point where they have to do charges against someone, bring it to a court, that they can do that they can have a fair trial. So I just want to kind of go over what he told me, as well as kind of some more information about Suzanne from the best friend of Barry's. I have reached out to Barry. I would love to speak with him. And also this investigator has also tried to reach out to Barry as well. Is there any questions so far that I can try to answer? Did they take anything from the property? We do not know. They will not tell us that. Cell phone data. They have not said anything about cell phone data. Do we even know who was last one to see her? Okay, so I did ask CBI about that. And CBI told me it's part of the investigation. They're actively seeking tips from citizens, but they believe that someone has seen her more recently than previously thought. And then when I asked about the question, when is the last time someone spoke with Suzanne? Perhaps someone has spoken with her more recently than previously thought. So it's still part of the investigation. Again, there's been 600 tips called in, and they're actively following up on those tips. So let me go back to Suzanne and what the best friend told me. The best friend told me that they moved to Colorado May of 2018. And from the best friend, he visited in October, and he told me that she had one more treatment left for her cancer. But what the family had told him was that everything was gone, and that it was a week or two before, hold on, sorry, I'm reading my notes real quick. So the doctor told them everything was gone, and that was a week before Troy Skinner had visited them. And so everyone was in good spirits when he had visited them to do an elk hunting trip. So Skinner told me that he's spoken with Barry. He's been doing text exchange and things like that. He says, they're just heartbroken. Troy Skinner really wants closure for the family. Let me see what else. So I asked Skinner as well, as far as why was the family not around? And he said, he knew that Barry had work in Denver. And so he had thought that he had left early on Sunday. and that he had done commercial landscaping jobs previously in Denver. So that made sense that he would be going to Denver for that. I asked him also, why hasn't Barry been more public about this? He did that one plea a week after she went missing, and it was pre-recorded and it wasn't with a reporter, so we could ask questions. And he just told me, Barry's a private man. And I think he said that he was going through a lot, and obviously from the video that he saw on social media, he said it looked like a man that hadn't had sleep in 8 hours or 8 days, or he hadn't had 8 hours of sleep, excuse me, sorry. This man also said that Skinner said he visited Colorado twice for elk hunting. And, they go on a 27-hour one-way trip to Montana to go do elk hunting, and they talk in the car, and they talked about just whenever one of the girls or Suzanne would call him, it would be on Bluetooth, and he could hear the conversation, and it sounded like there was no cracks in a relationship that he could see. They would, sit down at every dinner and pray. He described Suzanne and Barry's relationship as they would never bicker. He just said the family was perfect. I'm trying to think of what else I can tell you guys. Let me see some other questions. People are asking, is Barry currently living in the home? If not, where is he residing? I do not know that. The friend told me that they were all together. The girls and Barry are all together. I know that. As far as if they're staying at the house or at a friend's house, I do not know. I asked Troy, did Barry go on a lot of trips regularly? And if so, was it with or without Suzanne? And he said he did do a lot of hunting trips without Suzanne. He described them as his time of solitude, kind of a getaway from work, and it's time to relax, kind of re-energize himself. They went to Montana, and then the second time they went to Salida together. I asked this Troy Skinner if he helped the search, and he said, he thought about it, he really wanted to, but unfortunately with his work schedule, it didn't work out. He does regret that, but he is in constant communication with Barry, texting him and saying, like, what can I do for you? I'm here for you, things like that. I did ask him how much of the investigation is Barry and the family. Are they kept in the dark, or are they being pretty open as far as the investigators with the Morphew family? And they said at the beginning it was kind of more in the dark, according to Troy Skinner, but lately they've been in more communication with them. Both the best friend and this private investigator, they both believe this case will not go cold. They believe that the investigators working on the case currently are going to solve it and find Suzanne. I'm going to look at some questions. I have not, Chrissy is asking, have you seen or heard from her daughters? I have not. I would love to talk with her daughters. I know one of them is a minor, but I would love to hear from them in regards, even if it's just, what was Suzanne like as a mother, or talking more about her bike rides and maybe the route, or even just what she wore that day, if they knew that, or even if they came home and they looked through her closet and found some pieces of clothing that were missing, if they could just talk about that, that would be fantastic, just to give people more insight into Suzanne and, what type of mother she was. This best friend, Troy Skinner, he talked about the time where he had visited Salida and Maysville the second time, and they went hunting in Salida, that he got tired and wanted a break from hunting, and so he kind of stayed home while Barry went to work or something like that. And he got to talk to Suzanne and asked her, how was her, cancer, and how's she feeling, and how, what she's been doing in Maysville. And he got some answers as to for bike rides. And she told him she was never afraid. She felt safe when she went on the bike rides alone. She enjoyed them a lot. And she had no hesitations on going on bike rides by herself. So it sounds like Suzanne, she did this often. She went on bike rides often. We did ask the Chaffee County Sheriff in the first and only interview with the Chaffee County Sheriff, the press conference, if they knew the route that she took, if they could tell us what the route was, and he couldn't give that information. So let me talk about the private investigator I talked to, who's worked on many cases. He has 25 years of experience. He's not currently working on this case, but he kind of just gave information as to why was the FBI involved, and why have they not given us information on a regular basis and things like that. So Dan Corsentino, he says that they are restricting information intentionally to preserve the integrity of the case based on information that they may have that they do not want to release. He also talked about that there could be some information that might not get out because it could be perceived as misinformation. They obviously don't want to release information that isn't validated and confirmed in advance. He believes that the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, CBI, and FBI have deemed that the threat is only limited to, it is an isolated case, and that there is no threat to the community. The CBI spokesperson did tell me that there's no alarm to community members, because a lot of people were asking, is it safe in that area to go hiking and biking by myself and things like that. I did ask this investigator, though, if a woman or a male, if they go on a bike ride by themselves, or let's say a hike, how can they protect themselves? And he gave some great tips. He just said, always tell someone where you are and where you're going and when you're going. Bring pepper spray and mace. There are, wildlife in Colorado. We've had a lot of bear attacks just recently, actually. And then there's also mountain lions as well. And then he said, if you are harassed or followed, to immediately report that. Even if you see a suspicious vehicle, to immediately report that, because you never know who, that might help down the line. So this investigator also, he's had 17 years at the Pueblo County Sheriff, as the Pueblo County Sheriff, and then he's a former fountain chief for 18 months. And so I asked him, how is the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office? And he said they're respectable among law enforcement around Colorado. And he believes that they are working really hard to solve this case, to find out, what happened to Suzanne. He did tell me, though, he hasn't met the new sheriff, Sheriff John Sweezy, but he's worked with previous sheriffs in Chaffee County. He said that I asked him about the dogs and the search efforts at the very beginning. I said, is that typical that they were to have search dogs immediately? And he said, yeah, it's typical in this case because, one, it involves the outdoors and the terrain that it is. And also because it possibly could have happened outside because she was on a bike ride. And so he talked about the different dogs. So typically they say they use cadaver dogs, any type of airborne scent that they believe is connected to Suzanne, they'll go after, even if it's a certain direction at all. And then also the bloodhounds, he said, they're obviously kind of what you see in the movies where you take a piece of article of clothing of a person, they sniff it, and then they kind of let the dog go loose in the area to search and sniff. He said, okay, so he said that they would bring in the dogs before bringing anyone else to do a grid search so that it doesn't mess up the dog's sense. And he has not talked directly with anyone involved in this case so far yet. This is Dan Corsentino. He also kind of explained why maybe that they would go back into the home. They retrace their steps, kind of. He talked about how they're looking at, any piece of the building, the home, or any changes in the construction of the home, or, obviously they're illuminating it with different tools and things like that to see if there's any type of material that's different than what you would normally see in the home. Okay, so someone asked, was there a search warrant issued for today's search? As far as I know, there wasn't a search today. It was just yesterday. The CBI spokesperson told me that they were done searching and they had cleared the property already. And again, there was no new updates, unfortunately. Let me answer some more questions. Someone's asking if I know if there's been any searches or investigation in Indiana in the last week. I asked that and they just said it was part of the investigation. They could not tell me. Someone is asking, obviously they believe Suzanne is no longer with us. Who was the last person to see Suzanne? Oh, my computer just crashed. That's part of the investigation, they tell me, and they are really asking for more tips as well. Someone's asking, has law enforcement released the home back to the Morphews? Yes, they've cleared the property. Do you feel like the case is going really slow? Concerns? No, I don't think the case is going slow. I think, I've seen this in other cases like the Kelsey Barrett case, as well as the Gannon Stout case and other cases that I've covered. Yeah, people are really wondering why the FBI, CBI, and law enforcement is being so tight-lipped. This investigator, Dan Corsentino, he was very adamant about, let them do their job. They're working, constantly every single day to find Suzanne, to know what happened to her. And he's worked in law enforcement for 25 years, and he says, he's familiar with these agencies, and he has trust in them, and he hopes the family has trust in them. He did question the timing of her disappearance as far as, the Mother's Day weekend, as far as why was no one with Suzanne that weekend? Why was she alone going on a bike ride, when a day to celebrate a mother? He said that this type of case could take months. He could take years. He said he worked on the Kelsey Schilling case, and it's been 6 years, and still no one has been convicted of her disappearance. So I'm just going to go over my notes. I asked him also, why is this still classified as a missing person? And he explained that, with a homicide investigation, you have to have proof that that can be taken to prosecution. So he said it's either both forensic evidence or a witness testimony or disclosure of information from a third party to lay a foundation that a homicide did indeed happen. So he thinks that they're still collecting evidence. He says, the different scenarios that could have taken place. Was there a home invasion? Could there have been an accident on the trail, a kidnapping or an abduction? He said, what was Suzanne's mental state? Was there a possibility that she could have, there was self-harm involved and things like that? So he is looking, obviously the investigators are doing the same thing. When they sent out their press release yesterday, they said they aren't discounting any scenarios, and they're not formally eliminating anyone from suspicion at this point. He says, just be patient, people, is what the private investigator told me. He says, they're working aggressively on this case. He also talked to me about, what questions that the investigators are asking Barry and the family members and friends and other community members. And he said that possibly they're asking questions in different ways, but they're asking the same question to see if it's consistent and to find out, a timeline of, who last saw her, where, when, and things like that. I've gone over testing. I've gone over what they're searching for in the home, possibly. Oh, he also talked about how they might have one forensic expert come in, or one type of cadaver dog, or one type of bloodhound, and then the next day they will retrace those steps with a different forensic specialist and a different cadaver dog or a different bloodhound. Someone's asking if there's a hefty life insurance policy on Suzanne. That's a good question. I do not know. That's another question the private investigator also asked too, but I didn't know the answer to that either. Feel free to drop a question here. I'm starting to answer them now. Okay, oh, there it goes, okay. Yes, someone's asking me if I filmed this interview with the private investigator. I filmed the over-hour interview with Dan Corsentino, and we've aired probably a snippet of it every single show for Fox21 News. If you haven't watched the story that I did yesterday, it had parts of his interview in that. And then I've been putting in different sound bites that he talks about different things of the investigation in our newscasts. So we had one at 5, 6:30, and then we'll have one at 9, and then again at 10. Someone's asking, will Barry be doing any interviews with local media? I would love that. Yes, I would. If Barry's watching this, I don't know if he is or not, but if he is or close friends is watching this, we would love to talk with Barry just to know, what's it been like the last 2 months for him and his family, what's going through his mind, what was Suzanne like, things like that. I did ask the CBI because it was a week after Suzanne went missing. They asked the community about surveillance video, and I asked them are they going to release the video? If they do, because they asked people in the community if they had surveillance video to hold it from 2 days prior to May 10th and 2 days after May 10th to hold on to it, to keep it in their records, and then deputies would come to them to collect it. And I asked CBI yesterday if, have they collected that in video, and are they going to release any of the video that would show Suzanne? And they just said it's part of the investigation and they couldn't comment on that. As far as, if you live in Salida or Maysville and you collected, or if you had some surveillance video, could you comment on the stream right now and say, yes, they took my video or not, so that we could find that out. But as far as I know, they have not collected it. But then again, they're not telling us much. Someone is asking about the nephew's place. I don't know. What do you mean by the nephew's place? Which nephew? The one that initially came out, that was asking people to, continue to get Suzanne's name out there, he's not from Maysville or Salida, so. You guys continue to ask questions. Let's see what else I can tell you guys. I asked him also, how the private investigator, how long could a search site be locked down for? And he said he's seen them locked down for 7 days, 1 day. It just depends on what they're searching for. But he said that they're going to be very methodical and, make sure they don't miss anything. They're going to have different forensic specialists out there. He did say that family members often don't know specifics of what investigators find, but when they, say they eliminate one of the daughters, and they might, have a piece of clothing or something and be like, is this your mom's? He said that might happen. He said that they are probably asking Barry about Suzanne's routine, and I'm sure that they're asking him in 100 different times the same question, attempting to do, trying to see if he changes his statement or other people that they interview. So they're, going to ask the same question 20 different ways to see if there's consistency with the person's statement. He said that they're looking at her friends, Barry's friends, the children's friends, everybody and anybody because of the subject of which they want to eliminate as quickly as they possibly can. Okay, can they bring in dogs that smell blood, death in the house? Yes, they can, and they likely did, because what I saw from the Kelsey Barrett case, that happened. Someone's asking, what church camp did the girls attend? It goes away sometimes, some of the questions that you guys are asking. Does the investigator feel like law enforcement has any credible information or what they are on to anything? He trusts the investigators, and he says, you know, they're working diligently and aggressively to find Suzanne, to find out what happened to her. And he said, you know, the family just needs to have trust in them. And so I think he believes, yes, they obviously have more information that, that they're obviously not releasing right now. Again, there's 600 tips that they have received from the tip line. And I do want to say what the tip line is, if anyone is watching and is, you know, has information that they haven't yet given to authorities. It's 719-312-7530. So I kind of want to go over the timeline if you are just watching or starting to watch. So again, Suzanne went missing May 10th. Mother's Day, and a neighbor reported her missing after she didn't return from a bike ride. 100 personnel, along with tracking dogs, searched near the area of County Road 225 and Highway 50. And one of the girls that has put up ribbons that are teal and yellow in town in Salida showed me pictures yesterday of the bridge that is near supposedly where that bike was found. But again, the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office has not confirmed that the bike was ever found, where it was found, what the condition of the bike was like. But she did show me pictures where they believe that the bike was found near this bridge, and there's a ribbon now there as well. On Monday, May 11th, the Chaffee County Sheriff search and rescue teams, TAC teams, Department of Corrections, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and South Arkansas Swift Water Rescue, they searched the area, as well as they had drones and 8 different tracking and scent dogs they sent out. And from the beginning, they didn't ask for volunteers, which is in other missing person cases they typically do. So that was really interesting. And I think that might have been because of the dogs that they had, that they didn't want to, you know, mess up their scents and things like that. May 12th they had only dogs that day searching, dogs and drones, excuse me. And then May 13th, it was CBI, FBI joined the search. They created the tip line. May 14th, items found believed to be of Suzanne. And during the press conference that day, or the next day, excuse me. So that was Thursday, they found the item. And then Friday, May 15th is when they had their first and only press conference. The sheriff said they had found items, plural. And when we asked what those items were, they wouldn't tell us. And then I asked CBI to confirm, was it one item or was it multiple items? And they said one item. So the CBI corrected the Chaffee County Sheriff, I guess. So the sheriff spoke on May 15th. And he talked about how Highway 50 was closed for most of the day. They searched a 2.5-mile radius or area, and it was near County Road 225 and Highway 50 again, near where that item was found the day before. On Sunday, the Pueblo dive team was out. They searched Foose's Lake, which is really close actually to where Suzanne's home is. And then the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office also requested the surveillance video from May 8th through the 12th, and for people to just hold on to it until they came to them. As far as if those videos have been looked at, I do not know. They have not released that information, and they have not said whether or not they are going to release any of the video, or if they've seen Suzanne in any of the surveillance video. And then also that day is when Barry Morphew sent out a video of him, talking about the reward money, and then also, just missing Suzanne and wanting her to come home, saying that girls missed her and everything like that. So that was the same day. So that was Sunday. And then the 3-day search was May 21st through the 23rd. And they didn't say anything as far as why they were there and what they were searching for, or if they found anything. And then fast forward 3 more days, and it's May 26th, and the home is released back to the family. And then yesterday, so 41 days later, July 9th is when the search crews were back out at the Morphews' property. And they won't tell us why they went back to the property. Does the investigator feel like, oh, I already answered that question, sorry. Any info on the bicycle? As far as I know, the family just confirmed that they had found the bicycle the same day that she went missing on Sunday. They told us to ask the Chaffee County Sheriff as far as what the bike was like, with the description of the bike, where the bike was, and things like that. And the Chaffee County Sheriff will not talk about that. And the family friend, Troy Skinner, he tells me that Suzanne went on a lot of bike rides and was not afraid to go by herself. She felt safe enough to do that. Someone is asking if Barry took a lie detector test. I do not know that. Was the FBI still up there today? Sorry if I missed this. As far as I know, they were done searching and they cleared the property as far as today goes. Do you know anything about a woman being interviewed in town by the FBI? I do not know that question, and the FBI will likely not tell me if they have interviewed someone or not. I think the best thing that we can all do is just continue to share Suzanne's story, continue to keep putting pressure on law enforcement to continue to, ask for answers and to continue to search for Suzanne. And of course, if you pray for Suzanne and her family, as they are going through a lot right now. I can't imagine having to go through holidays like Father's Day and 4th of July and things like that with a piece of your family gone, missing, their mother isn't there to celebrate those holidays with them. Did they take any cars to search? That they have not said. They won't confirm. They just say it's part of the investigation. Someone's asking if the cameras around their house was working. I would love to know that answer, but I do not know that answer, and the investigators have not released that information. Do you guys want me to keep answering questions, or do you want me to talk more about what I learned from the private investigator or the family friend? One of the things that the private investigator told me was that, he's worked in law enforcement for so long. He knows a lot of other private investigators. And I don't know if you've seen, but the Tyson Draper video on YouTube, when he talked to Barry mentioned that he had a private investigator of his own working the case. And this private investigator I spoke to, he said he was not aware of anyone in Colorado working with Barry. So it must have been someone from another state or something like that might be working with Barry. I did ask both gentlemen, if they saw his first plea, Barry's first plea, if what they thought of that video. And the friend of Barry said, that's Barry. He just looks like he hasn't gotten sleep in days and is just very concerned about his wife. And the private investigator said, as a cop, he thought it was sincere. Let me see what he specifically said. He said, my perspective is that he came across as a sincere and comes across as a sympathetic husband. He also said he looked somewhat sincere in the video. And the private investigator did not see the Tyson Draper impromptu interview. And I did ask the friend about that, and he said, I think Barry sincerely thought that it was someone really coming to help search for his wife and didn't know that. What's up? Okay. And didn't know that he was being recorded. A question I asked the friend was, is Barry searching for her or is he staying put? And he said, he was going out on a regular basis searching for her from the beginning, but lately, not so much. He said, he periodically goes on trails, walking, searching for her. But he said he is still at the house. Oh, so he is still at the house. Sorry, I'm reading. I have so many notes. So yeah, the friend said he is still at the house, and I think he started to get back to work. I think sitting around the house would drive him crazy. The girls have been with him the entire time. But he did say that the youngest daughter did stay with her boyfriend for a week during the house was under investigation. Let me ask. Was the location voiced? I don't know what that means. Did Troy or the detective tell you anything you cannot share? There were things off the record that, is going to stay off the record. Someone's asking if there's abandoned cabins around that property. That's a good question. I'm going to reach out to the Chaffee County fire chief again to kind of learn more about that area, that property, as well as, the calls that were leading up to her disappearance that weekend. I need to go down, sorry. Was the PI asked about the Indiana properties, or did he volunteer that statement? Yeah, he just talked about it in my interview. If you missed that, it's on our website, fox21news.com. He did talk about the guardianship of the properties in Indiana, and Barry requesting guardianship. He did mention that in my interview, and I put that in the story that I aired yesterday. No one will hire him now. What is he talking about? I don't know. Sorry, I continue. 2 questions. Any info on a body found in the river in New Mexico? Okay, so I did ask New Mexico. I called that area about that specific body that was found. And when I asked them, have you heard about Suzanne Morphew and when she went missing and things like that? And they said, no, we hadn't heard about her. And then when they asked me, when did she go missing? And I said, Mother's Day. And he said, of last year or this year? And I said, of this year. And he goes, oh, it's probably not her. It sounded like the body had been decaying for a lot longer than just since May. And I haven't heard anything since then about that. And I also brought that to CBI, and they were going to check on it, but never got back to me. Someone's asking if Barry's truck has a GPS. I don't know that. I'm not great with vehicles and knowing what has, what has GPS systems and what doesn't. This private investigator, wants to talk to Barry, and both I and this private investigator, we both have sent our contact information to Barry, and it sounds like this private investigator would like definitely to talk to Barry, but has not yet. Okay, what time is it? Ooh, it's almost an hour. Okay, I have to kind of wrap this up. If I did not answer a question that you put in this Facebook Live, it went so quickly. I will go back and answer. I kind of will wrap it up with just saying, you know, continue to share her story, continue to talk about Suzanne. So hopefully there will be more tips coming into law enforcement. Again, that tip line is 719-312-7530. Again, there's been 600 tips called in. So far, no arrests and no suspects named. They are done searching at the property, the Morphew property. They searched yesterday and they cleared the property today. All right, thanks guys for tuning in. And if you guys enjoyed this, I was kind of scatterbrained today, but if you guys enjoyed this, please feel free to comment that you enjoyed it and want to do this more. I don't want to do this unless I have more interviews or new information, either from family members, friends, law enforcement, and things like that. So I don't want to just get on here and talk about things that we've already talked about. I would like to just give you guys more information, new information. So again, have faith in law enforcement. They're doing their job. They, you know, said that they're aggressively working this case on a daily basis. So let's just try to continue to just keep Suzanne and her family in our thoughts. And if there's anyone that's friends with Suzanne that, you know, hung out with Suzanne in Colorado, I would love to speak with you about her. And if you're watching this, I would love to speak with you and your daughters, just as far as, you know, I can't imagine what you guys are going through. So if I did not get to your questions, I will go back through this Facebook Live and try to answer them as best as I can. Thanks, guys.